Greetings, students. We are going to cover Chapter 19, which discusses planning transitions to support and inclusion. Here is an example of a transition. This is when my son Colson just turned 3 and was graduating from the UCLA Early Intervention Program. It was so bittersweet. It was such an amazing program. And we knew once he turned 3 that he was going to have to transition to preschool. So this is something that I know about all too well. Here are our objectives for Chapter 19. After reading this chapter, you should be able to describe 2 program transitions that occur in early childhood and discuss how they differ. Outline the steps in the transitional process, including the roles of the family and sending and receiving programs. Discuss the transitions from early intervention to preschool, including the legal requirements, and highlight the strategies that help ensure a successful transition to kindergarten. So again, you know the drill. Make sure that you read these objectives first before you begin reading the chapter so that you can activate that schema, your prior knowledge, and it will help you to retain information as you go through the chapter and you elaborate what you thought you knew, and you are able to clarify confusions and illuminate misconceptions and add on to your learning. So read the objectives first and then dive into the chapter. Transitions during early childhood services. Children need to be prepared to move from one setting to the next. So how do we go about doing that? This should not be rushed if at all possible. Planning needs to occur to avoid duplication in testing, to prepare the new teachers, and to allow the parents time to adjust to the new schedule and expectations. So planning is key. What are the steps in the transition process? So you need to first develop a planning team. Who is going to be part of that team? Is it the early intervention teacher, the preschool teacher, any therapists, parents, possibly a regional center service coordinator? It all depends, and it could be all of those. Set goals, define roles for the family and sending and receiving programs. Write the transition plan and procedures. Review the outcome of the transition and the child's adaptation to the new program. Developing a planning team, so that might include family members, teachers who are currently working with the child, as I mentioned, therapists who are involved, and the new teacher if possible. Setting goals. Have a good understanding of the curriculum in the new program. Combine that with the current level of performance to write goals and identify challenges and come up with some proposed solutions. What are the roles of the team members? So the role of the sending program. So the sending program would be where the child is leaving. So if they've just turned 3, then perhaps it's an early intervention program. And then the receiving program would be the school program where the child is transitioning to. So if it's an early intervention is the sending program, the receiving program might be a preschool program, for example. So what's the role of the sending program? Is to work with the receiving program on skills the child is expected to have, identify needed areas, work with the child on new expectations, and prepare the parents for the new environment. And that can be scary. It can be emotional for both the child and the parent. Also, the role of the receiving program. Possibly visit with the child, family, and former teacher. Explain the philosophy and goals of your facility. Ask questions about the child's strengths and needs. Set up a communication strategy. So are you going to communicate through email, phone calls? Is there a newsletter, through text, written letters, etc.? Evaluate progress in meeting new transition goals. And that is really, really important. So how are we measuring whether or not our goals are being reached and if we're being successful in helping that child meet their goals? Also, there is parental role involved. So seeking out program options is something that the parents are going to be doing. They're going to be looking at different programs to determine what is the right fit for their child. Visit the different ones if there's a choice. Express concerns. Be clear about expected outcomes, ask about communication strategies, and inform Center of Cultural Norms. And I think this is really important because this is where parents need to feel empowered. And so I've learned through my experience in looking at different appropriate placements for my son is that you really have to go in with a lot of questions. You have to go in with an idea of what is an appropriate fit for your child, and not best fit, because the state does not support best, but appropriate. So you can advocate for what you feel is most appropriate for your child. Come with a checklist. For example, I go in, I have a checklist of questions and things that I'm looking for, whether it's curriculum, whether it's student to teacher ratio, whether it's the changing area for my son who was still wearing diapers, it's still wearing diapers, but whatever your child needs, what is the bathroom situation like? What is the playground area like? Is there enough space in the classroom for that child to move around? How experienced are the teachers? What curriculum are they using? What's the adaptive PE program? All of these questions. It's a lot to remember. So my recommendation is to have literally written down a checklist or on your phone, a list of questions and things that you can ask. And they should allow you to take photos as well, because if you're looking at different places, you're going to want to keep them organized and know, you're going to forget what place was it that had the changing table that was far away from the classroom, for example. And those are things that you're going to want to note. So documenting and coming prepared with lots of questions, and feel empowered and feel like you are your child's advocate. So express concerns, be clear about expected outcomes, ask about communication strategies, and then again, inform center of cultural norms. Writing the transition plan and procedures. Time should be spent on writing goals for the transition process. This is not something that should be done, in 15 minutes. This is really important. So spend the time that it deserves. The plan should be in place to work with the child entering the program on his or her IEP. And an evaluation should be in place to monitor progress. Also, part of the steps in the transition process is reviewing the outcome and the child's adaptation to the new program. So once the child has begun in the new program and has transitioned, how are they doing? Are they thriving? Are they flourishing? The process should include addressing such questions as, is the child adjusting to the program? How do the parents feel about the program? Does the receiving staff require additional information or training to help support the child? And are transitional goals being met? These are great questions, and they're important to make sure that you're asking and you're holding all parties accountable. Transition from early intervention services to preschool services. Changes in service delivery models and plans. So early intervention is typically done in the home. So we're moving from IFSP to rewriting them to become IEPs. Preschool is typically done in a center, and early intervention isn't always done in the home. So there are early intervention programs like the UCLA program that you saw pictured on the first slide. But according to the text, typically early intervention is done in the home. There are differences in eligibility, differing roles for the family, differing program philosophies, and there can also be a reduction of services when a child turns 3 years old. There's legal requirements of that transition, so you need to amend the IFSP to include those transitions. Give parents information about those transitions. Prepare the child. Ensure continuity of services and send new records to the new agency. Developing the transition plan. A meeting must take place 6 months to 90 days before the third birthday. So you don't just start planning it the day that they turn 3, right? You have to start planning ahead of time. A meeting must occur even if the child is no longer eligible for services. Preschool options are discussed at that transition plan meeting, and an IEP is written and in place by their third birthday. Those are the goals. So preparing children for the transition. Help the child by working on transfer skills. Readiness skills are also key. Prepare the child for the new class by reading books on those topics of starting preschool or kindergarten or what have you. Visit the new school and begin with short days, and then you can build to longer extended days. So here is my little guy. So this is Noah. This is my older son, and this is way back. It feels like it was just yesterday. Him transitioning to go to preschool. So he was 2 years old at the time. So the photo at the top is him walking in. His backpack looks so big. Walking into school on his first day of preschool. And then the photo at the bottom is my husband there with him to help him get acclimated for the first, few minutes while he was in preschool. And prior to that first day, we had taken him there to observe the classroom, and so that he can kind of acclimate himself. So we showed him, here's the book center, here's the restroom, this is going to be your classroom, Noah. So that helped with the transition too. And I think, again, it helps both the parent and the child to transition, because think about how it feels when you start at a new place. If you go to a new job, for example, and you've never been there before, and you don't know where the lounge is, where the restrooms are, where's the elevator, etc., where's your office. So children definitely need to have that preview so that they can feel more comfortable. And ensuring continuity of services, it is illegal to place children on a waiting list if they are eligible for services. I'm going to repeat that. It is illegal to place children on a waiting list if they are eligible for services. If a child's birthday falls over the summer, late spring, or early fall, this needs to be considered, because services cannot lapse. So lapsing means that there's the service is discontinued for whatever reason, because the services were not planned ahead of time, and so because maybe services are closed or they're on a waiting list or something, and so the services, they go a certain amount of time without getting those services. That's what it means by the services cannot lapse. Transferring records. Records need to be transferred to the new setting. And so nowadays, most of the time, records can be digital records, so it's a little bit easier, but they might also be hard copies as well. So they need to be transferred to the new setting. A parent can request to see the records and remove irrelevant items. And this must happen in a timely manner before the child arrives in the new program. Specific considerations for children moving to inclusive setting. So it may be the first time that a child is in a group setting. Parents may feel stress over their child being with others who can do more than them. Staff may not know what to do or how to do for the child with disabilities. So services vary from community to community. And again, the most important things are really doing your due diligence, trying to find a program that you feel is the most appropriate fit, and touring beforehand with or without your child, asking questions. And it's okay to go to start a program and then realize it's not the best fit. Remember the questions that we asked a few slides ago, those questions: how's the child adjusting? Do the parents like the program? It's completely okay to say, you know what, this isn't quite working for our child. I don't feel like they're thriving. I think that there's something more appropriate out there. And so that is your right as a parent or an advocate, caregiver, guardian, etc., to find something that is going to best meet your child's needs. So don't be afraid to look for that if you're not currently there. Transition to kindergarten. There is no legal mandate for transition to kinder, but it is highly recommended. Transition planning. You can plan your transition in the spring. Identify options by visiting future programs. Prepare the child, and then you enter kindergarten. Also implement informal support services, communicate with the family, communicate with the former program, and then evaluate the transition and child adjustment. And now, this is Noah, 2 years ago, his first day of kindergarten. So you saw his first day of preschool and then his first day of kindergarten. My, how time flies. I love that cheesy smile. So cute. So we have covered transitions in this chapter, our final chapter, objectives revisited. After reading this chapter, you should now be able to describe 2 program transitions that occur in early childhood and discuss how they differ. Outline the steps in the transitional process, including the roles of the family in sending and receiving programs. Discuss the transitions from early intervention to preschool, including the legal requirements, and highlight the strategies that help ensure a successful transition to kindergarten. You did it. We have reached the final chapter. Thank you so much for your attention, and I hope you are learning a lot. I am enjoying sharing this information with you. Thanks again. See you later.